Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi everyone. Today we are talking about team building. Team building is the action or process of causing a group of people to work together effectively as a team, especially by means of activities and events designed to increase motivation and promote cooperation. Well, we just have had an interview with Tom Stewart on how to build teams. Now we're going to talk about team building in the sense of when we all get together with those teams that have already been built and how we keep everybody connected in a way that's helpful for our company. And really, in the end, it's all about creating connection. As I reflected, I thought about in the mid-90s, I'm dating myself a little bit here, when I was working for companies and what team building looked like. Now, I had the pleasure of working for an amazing restaurant group out of San Francisco called Real Restaurants. And a big part of our team building was always a holiday party. But then it was also continued education. So it looked like going up to Napa and having a time at the wineries and learning about champagne, bottling our own wines together by mixing different varietals, making maritages, and those were great team building experiences. Now, I will say I was involved with a team building experience that I had put together where we bussed a group of employees out to Hog Island Oyster Farm and brought in a winery. I'm glad we bussed everybody out. I'm not sure the best mix is to do oysters and alcohol with the team for team building. I will say, right, I was in my mid-20s, so it seemed like a great idea. Later, I was like, I don't know if I made more issues than created real good connection with that team building experience. But boy, it sure was a blast. Obviously, I'm still talking about it today. So there's different ways when we think about team building and our experiences with team building. Then I worked for a company where we had somebody come in and do the DISC assessment for our team, which I still use this assessment, but I use it more focused with sales specifically. That was a great experience. I really enjoyed learning about everybody else. And for those of you that don't know DISC or haven't done it, it's old school, but I swear by it. It's one of my favorites, really. That's why I still use it. What it does is it talks about your dominant behavior styles so that we can look at each person as the individual they are. What I really enjoyed about it as a team, I was then learning about who was really one of those people that kind of had more of an engineer mind that I could go to as a resource because that's not my strength when it comes to actual compliance. I'm more of a steady influencer. And then also knowing for the D being dominant, that if they were high with dominant, I wasn't going to chit chat with them much. I was going to be pretty direct and make sure that I was honoring them and not wasting their time. A cool exercise that we did is we ended up posting on our cubicles how we like to be communicated to, which I thought was awesome because it allowed for us to kind of glance at that and remember who we're talking to and meet everybody where they want to be met. That speaks to the platinum rule. That's one of my values of treating people how they want to be treated, really going to that next level with people and how we connect with them. And then, again, there's always interesting team building experiences. I did a geocaching with a team and watched one of the leaders cheat. And so that gave me real insight on who that person was and how I was going to continue to work with them, because that compromised my main value of integrity and allowed me to just see the person for who they were. Maybe not the best example, but something for everybody to keep in mind when we're team building is that we're showing who we are, and that means good and sometimes bad. So why do we team build? I'm sure you've worked for companies where they're like, oh, we're going to do team building. And you roll your eyes and you're like, seriously? Do you know how many things I have to get done? Why are we doing this? Well, according to Forbes, they wrote an article, and it was 6 years ago, but it really had some good points in it. And it said, why team building is the most important investment you'll ever make was the title. It builds trust. It mitigates conflict. It encourages communication, and it increases collaboration. So effective team building means more engaged employees, which is good for company culture and boosting the bottom line. And in turn, it does. Now, how I see team building, definitely all of these pieces, but it's really about having connection and learning about one another is what I focus on. And team building looks a little different for all companies. I just had the pleasure of doing team building with 2 different companies in 1 week. And so I started my week off with a team where we focused on sales. And it was a small group, so we got to do some fun stuff with a smaller group. Now, I brought in the DISC sales assessment, and we were able, as a team, have everybody look at who they were and then who their team members were and understand how to communicate to one another. The ideal part about this team is that they were all different. Now, that isn't always the case for me. Sometimes I run into teams where maybe the leader has hired themselves and they're all the same. Not ideal. You want everybody to have different strengths. And so it was so fabulous to be able to have everyone have different strengths and be able to pull from those strengths in our time together. So we did the DISC assessment, and then I ended up debriefing and explaining DISC and explaining what kind of questions people that are different behaviors ask, what kind of emails they usually send, and then allow them to understand their top behavior styles and how to communicate to those other styles in a sales setting. Really ideal for sales, because what I hear a lot is, I just did not resonate with that person. They irritated me so badly. And often I will have listened to a call and I'll be like, yeah, I picked up on that in tone. Tell me why. Well, did you hear how pushy they were? And I tell you what, more often than not, it's that they are a high D in dominant, and the reservation sales agent is either a high S or I. And so those two don't always connect easily. This assessment allowed them to understand that and then understand how to communicate to that person, still creating connection with them and not just treating everybody like how they want to be treated. Instead, treating people how the people want to be treated. We also ended up doing a couple of presentations during that time where I did some role playing, and I always have a little group activity during my presentations to get people kind of up and moving, but also interact with one another. Another thing I do is I will always ask, what do you want to learn while we're together? And then at the end, I'll ask them what they took away from our time together. Because I know when people walk away from team building, they are usually taking about 20% of what I said. And so this helps deepen that, oh yeah, this is what really resonated with me. And my question is, how are you going to take that further moving forward? The big part of this, and this is discussed in the Forbes article, is you got to keep the momentum going. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I coach their leader. So after I left, we talked about, what are you going to do to keep this going? Because we know after 2 weeks, they revert back to old behaviors. And she said, yeah, I'm listening to it in calls. It's back to normal. I said, yep. So what are you going to do to go in and deepen what they learned before and remind them about the skills that we talked about? I do enjoy role playing. Not everybody enjoys it, with this team. They totally got into it. So it was an absolute blast. And we just laughed and had fun with it because it can be awkward at times, but they were a small group and they were so comfortable with each other and had worked with each other for over a year. So they were pretty comfortable with one another. Then I worked with an entire company where I went in and we did an assessment on the Tigers. And Tigers is trust, interdependence, genuineness, empathy, risk, and success. Before I showed up, I knew their area of opportunity based on the actual assessment. And I will say, across the board, I'm finding this with all companies. I do think it's related to the pandemic, and that is risk. Risk continues to be a challenge for people. Now, with that, what we did is we started off with a team game, and it was a blast. This team game, very different than DISC. The team game literally has them working together, independently working together, just as like 5 people each. And then they come together and collaborate to agree on the same pieces without giving this whole game away and definitions of each of the Tiger's 6 principles. What I love about this game is it shows if there is a leader that takes over, if there is somebody that just totally drops out and doesn't get involved, or who can really collaborate. And so it's self-discovery. After the game is finished, we assess all of these pieces and I take them through the 4 levels of learning and questioning so that they can really look at themselves and see what came out and have discoveries. The most beautiful thing I can ask for is when somebody sees that they completely take over. And then we talk about, what's this look like in your work environment? Have you seen this happen before? Oh yeah, usually they have. Is this helpful? No, because then so-and-so drops out and isn't involved. And that's not what a team is. A team is a group of people that trust each other. And so really keeping that focus on what Forbes talks about is that building trust. When we trust each other, there is less conflict. When we understand one another and who they are at their root, there's less conflict. And then we're able to talk about it. This completely increases collaboration. So when you look at team building overall, it's not a splurge, as Forbes says. It's an investment, which is true. When you have more cohesive teams, your company culture is tight. Now, when I was leaving this company, they were implementing core values. And I recommended, I said, have each person write down their own core values and then talk about how their core values connect with the company core values so they can see the connection. And then bring it right back to 6 principles. And I went through their core values and I said, look at how this hits on trust, how this hits on interdependence, how this hits on empathy, and re-solidify that Tiger's 6 principles that they had learned while I was there. Because it's real easy to have somebody come do presentations, everybody's excited, and 2 weeks later, they're back to normal. So if you're going to make the investment, keep that momentum going and ditch just having the company picnic. It's great to have holiday celebrations. I love it. I think it's awesome. But I'm going to encourage you, go outside of the box. One of the things I've recommended to people is do some type of cooking classes. Have one of the employees come in and show everybody how to make tamales. Whatever it is. Do a pottery painting class. Do something different. You do want to ensure that you're able to bring everybody into the fold. And so that's where it can get funny if you're doing something that's too active. Like, as much as I'd love to take people cross-country skiing, that doesn't work for a whole team. So know that and do something that's realistic for teams so that they don't feel like they're singled out or it's uncomfortable for them. A cooking class could be challenging for me. I'd have to speak up and be like, so I don't do gluten, dairy, garlic, bananas, and tamales anymore can be challenging. But either way, it can happen and there can be accommodations for that. So think about how you can get creative. I highly recommend you're doing this at least once a quarter, bringing people together to connect. It's so important. I will leave you with a quote from Henry Ford. Team, coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. working together is success. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.